You know, he's really he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
All right, welcome back to the Getting Lit podcast. Last episode, we spoke to Ivan Nikolai about his collection, and this episode, we are speaking to returning guest Brad Kelly to talk about his new novel, The Earthen Dark. Welcome, Brad.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Really excited to talk to you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We had a great conversation last time about The Golem, which was a very surprising book. I think it was Fresta's suggestion, and well, yeah, we
Yeah, I
both
loved
really
it.
Yep, I'll take
enjoyed
credit for
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
basically,
yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah.
loved it.
Yeah, we love yeah, things stalking the Czech Jewish ghetto, and the kind of magic of that. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that was so up your alley. Like I was actually very surprised, Brad,
yeah,
that you like loved it so much. But and
yeah,
yeah, great conversation. So go and see that. Go and listen to that if you haven't already. But yeah, your new book, Earthen Dark. Uh, Sewers. Sewers
yeah.
feature prominently in this.
Yes, it's true.
And I like I think you said it on Rare Candy or someone said it on another podcast about how like men just love holes. Like holes in the
It's
ground,
true.
holes
It's
elsewhere.
true. It's
But
true.
like things underground, like going underground, exploring. What is that
Yeah.
about? Like, did you come to any like kind of realizations writing this book?
Yeah, I kind of I can talk, I guess, sort of around it, but you're totally right. Like there's that meme even of like, if a dude's on a beach and he starts digging a hole, like
Yeah.
gradually other men and young men, boys of all ages will come around. Even old men will stand around and kind of
Yeah,
look
yeah.
into the hole. Uh, so there is definitely something there. I mean, I guess in some way the book is sort of trying to figure that out. I mean, I think there is uh, I, there's a couple of ways I can think about this. I mean, I think there is a sort of a metaphorical extension here where, um, if you had a dream about digging a hole and did, a Jungian analysis on it, it would be about like digging into your subconscious or something like that.
Mm,
I think there's like an element of that. I've also really come to see that, and this isn't strictly male female thing, but it sort of is, where I think men frequently get this criticism from women that like men don't express their feelings or whatever. And I think from their perspective, that's true. And I think that's because men tend to express their emotional reality in physical space by making things, doing things with their hands usually or whatever. And so I think there is this way in which it's like an enacting of some kind of process. Like the men like it because they are looking for something. And maybe it's cheesy to say, but also like they're kind of looking for something in themselves too in there. But it's also unexplored territory. Like
mm.
any hole, if you just pick a spot, maybe not in a like super developed area, but if you just go out into the woods and dig a hole 4 feet down, nobody has ever seen that before. So it's like this whole uncharted territory that is right there. It's just within reach. So there's something about that too. And we love frontiers. We love being the first people into something, the first people to see something. So there's some of that going on too. Um, yeah, yeah, I think there may even be more to it than that, actually.
Mm, mm. So,
But yeah, that's a start anyway.
so a lot of your you know, um there is a lot of w like work in the sewer. Like the main character Jim is a kind of What's the official sort of title of what his job would be, would you say?
I
Or
mean, he would just be he would be a laborer, but you would say he's
yeah.
doing sewer rehabilitation or sewer
Yeah.
rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So going in and like, patching things
patching it
up.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Um, and this is one of those, I really love those sections early in the book when you're kind of describing this. It's very like sensory. It sounds foul, as you would
Mm.
imagine, of the sewer. Like, but yeah, the way that you describe it obviously comes from like real life experience because you had a
Yeah.
similar job, or you do have a similar job, or
Yeah, I do. I don't go into the sewer as much as I used to, but there was a
but
period
you
of time
long
where I was
for
in
it,
this.
don't you?
Dude, it's funny because I would tell people like when we were doing sewer entries, I was like, this is the best part of the job. And some dudes would kind of nod their head, and other people are like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, it's like an adventure, man. Like you got to get all your gear going. You got to like, it's like, it feels like a mini military operation or something. And so it's cool. It's like a little adventure. And you do eventually get sort of inured to the smell and the disgust. The more time you spend in there, your disgust sensitivity goes down and down and down and down until like it doesn't bother you that much unless you come across something particularly disgusting. Um, and I was working in an engineering capacity, so the stuff that you see Jim in the book doing in the book, like actually doing like manual labor, I did very, very, very little of that, but definitely spent a lot of time in there. But the guys who do the physical labor, they become a different kind of human, or a different kind of human is drawn to that work, you know. So like you'll go down there and like I remember one time going down and the crew of guys, they had sent a pizza down and they were eating a pizza in there. And we were just like, that's that's a bit much,
It's
man.
like
Yeah.
it's like eating on the toilet or something, like
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just it's I can see if you're down there for 10 hours, you got to scarf a granola bar, you got to do what you got
yeah.
to do, but just like chilling, eating a piece of pizza is a whole different thing. Yeah, yeah.
Set up you know how like on river floats sometimes people set up the
Yeah,
chairs
yeah.
and the table in the
Right.
water, like set it
Right, right.
set up a little canteen.
Yeah, yeah. So it's you do weirdly get kind of used to it.
Mm,
But there's a sense of claustrophobia that you get somewhat used to, but it's always kind of lurking there
Mm.
behind the surface. And you know, you take a lot of precautions to make sure that it's very safe, but there's still risks. And I did one thing that in the book is like pretty much every dangerous thing that can happen down there happens at some point in this book. But it's funny to like be in there. I remember this so distinctly. I remember just being in there, me and like three or four people were looking at some stuff, and I don't want to get into the boring technical details, but we're checking some workout that had been done and making sure it was cool, and basically so we can give the thumbs up and the project can be over. And there was some work happening way upstream of us, and there's a super loud clang, and all of us just like froze. We're all just like,
mm,
what does that mean?
mm,
Does that mean something just opened that's not supposed to be open? And we knew that like basically we either would have to run several hundred feet up to a manhole, and if there's water flow coming at you, you're not going to do that. And then the other end was like a 40-foot drop. And so like we kind of realized at that moment like, oh, there's if something comes up, there's really not any good options for us. And luckily
mm.
it was just literally it was a meaningless sound. It didn't mean anything. But we definitely had a few seconds where we're like, oh shit. Is this it? So, yeah, those things
S-
happen for sure.
So, another, I think the autobiographical element sort of questions can be a bit, passe, so to speak. But
Sure.
I do find it interesting, like with you, obviously, at one point you were in would you say the academic world as well, and then you sort of sort of transitioned
Yeah.
to this kind of work, yeah,
Yeah,
like Jim.
I had an engineering degree first and then a career short-lived career in that, doing very different kind of work than the
Yeah.
sewer work, and then got my MFA, and then did a whole bunch of stuff, and then hey, I actually have this engineering degree. So, so in looking desperately for work, got this job, which happens to be at a great company, but um, yeah, so it's from academia, and I tried to stay in academia. I applied for 60 or 80 teaching gigs, which I was technically qualified for, and nothing happened. And so, yeah, back to engineering work I went. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
that part, yeah, I
yeah,
didn't
I
get
got
booted out like Jim.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I got that sense though as well that like there's a uh it was interesting the transition. There's a lot of like nice kind of narrative texture to that because it's like in these jobs, people will say, you can't get hired as like a white man anymore, but like, and that's kind of true, but it's also like no one can get hired in this in that industry. Like it's very,
yeah,
very, very few
yeah,
people can get like
yeah.
proper careers. Um,
It's true.
but the juxtaposition between that world and the kind of underworld, I guess, was
Mm,
really nicely done because like, like you said, if something happens and things do happen, obviously, you are in mortal danger. Whereas like
mhm.
there's almost with the kind of academic kind of, uh word cell type jobs, there's this like it's almost like, not getting this, one semester teaching gig is this like existential dread. Whereas like you compare that
Right.
to actually working with your hands in like in a dangerous environment is like this very, it's just a really cool sort of juxtaposition I kind of liked.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And you're totally right. And I don't want to like overplay the risk that I've personally been in, but there are, you do everything very carefully, and so
Mm,
it's is safe, but there is this sort of I mean, you're doing all that because it's dangerous
mm,
ultimately, right? And so just the fact that you're doing that, where you're like, well, we better double check this stuff before we start going in. And it's like somewhere back in your mind, it's like, yeah, because if something's wrong, I'm gonna die.
mm.
It's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a different thing. I don't know
And
that, in academia, I don't know what the risk in academia is that I guess, you get fired or you get embarrassed or humiliated or, your reputation gets destroyed or something like that, which isn't fun either, but
mm, mm.
is a little bit removed from sort of life or death situations.
Yeah, and I've actually heard you speak about the MFA experience positively. Like most
Yeah.
people are just sort of like, kind of like, they just sort of clown on the MFA style of
Yeah.
writing or whatever. But I don't know. I think and I get what people are saying when they clown on that.
Me
It's just
too.
like sanding off the edges of something that could be a little bit more idiosyncratic and things like that.
Mm.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on the MFA in terms of your experience?
I mean, I learned a ton. I was fortunate. I went to a really, really good one. I didn't end up in any debt while I was there. Mine was 3 years. Usually they're 2 years. I had a stipend. Like it was as good as it could possibly be. I got to meet and I got to meet and have real conversations with some incredible writers, like, you know, Dennis Johnson and George Saunders came through. I met Jonathan Franzen briefly, and those are just people who came through. We had lecturers and guest lecturers. I mean, I had a semester course with Bridget Pagine Kelly, who I don't know if you guys know, but literally, like, to me, Mount Rushmore of American poets. She's incredible. She's our rest in peace, but she was incredible. I learned so much from her. So I learned so much from these people. Alan Gurganis, who wrote "Oldest Living Confederate Widow Tells All," was a mentor of mine. My advisors were incredible. So I learned a ton. I think there is this thing where there's some of the misconceptions is that there's like this. Um, Tried and true MFA to like to
The
New York
pipeline,
Times
yeah.
bestseller pipeline, which
Yeah.
just isn't true at all. It's just not how it works. Like I remember my last year asking my advisor, like, so do you like know an agent I can talk to? I'm like, no, not really. So like I had to know when I left, I had the email address of one agent. I didn't have a formal introduction or anything to them. It was just like, yeah, you can email this person. So, that connection, the connection between the publishing industry and like what we were doing academically in workshop there was almost no connection. Um, but yeah, I think, frankly, I think some of the criticism I think comes from like a misunderstanding of like how books get on the shelf and the fact that like there is a bunch of cool stuff happening in the MFA program. And really what you're criticizing is a particular taste within the publishing industry more so than criticizing what's happening in the MFA world. Of course, my experience is like 12 years out of date, so I don't even really know
Mm.
what goes on there now. Um, uh, but man, I mean, for me, it was like for 3 years, my full-time job was to become the best fiction writer I possibly could. And I had all sorts of resources at my disposal to make that happen. And man, I don't know, like if it's not a reasonable thing to do for most people. I mean, I derailed a career. It took me, I left, being financially, while I was in my MFA, I didn't really have to worry. I had just enough money to get by. It was like exactly how much money you needed to live. And luckily, my health and all that was good, and I didn't have kids or anything like that. So it was just like just enough to get by. Um, but I derailed a professional career that I really have never recovered from and never
Mm.
will. It took me years to get back to the point where I was making more money than I was spending afterward. Um, so, sacrifices were made. But what was my point? Oh, if you're serious about the thing, like trying to get better at this craft, I mean, I think try to do it, and then you just like any educational enterprise, most of it is how you guide the thing. So
Mm.
like, you know, if somebody tells you a piece of guidance and you're like a piece of opinion on your work and you're like, that's dumb, well then don't listen to it.
Mm.
Do your
Yeah,
own thing,
exactly.
man. Like like part of it is just like you're gonna be influenced by stuff, but like you're gonna have to like crack your own whip on yourself eventually. This thing is just giving you all of the resources possible. Um, I learned so much. Most of it I learned at my own desk in my apartment while I was in an MFA, but I learned a ton. So I don't know. I don't totally understand the criticism. I think some of it is resentment for either not having gone or not being able to get into one. I think some
Yeah,
of it
I
is
think a
that.
lot of it is
Not
actually,
all of it, but
yeah,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
like I think I think the best sort of arguments are like I said, the arguments that you mentioned about like taste of the industry versus, and also like a kind of um and it also depends on the program too. Like I
Yeah.
actually think that the Iowa style um sort of does tend to yeah, bevel off those edges in a
Mhm.
way that's, if you've got I kind of want I kind of want a writer to be spiky with their like
Yeah.
with their style, not necessarily like completely palatable because it makes them interesting. But that's
Yeah.
also my
Yeah.
taste. And not
Right.
everyone has the strength of will to kind of not internalize the kind
Yes.
of that kind of critical mass of people's
Yeah.
opinions of a piece of
It,
writing, you
it
know?
is it is tough. I mean, it is tough when everybody in the room is telling you that this thing is bad or whatever. You
Yeah.
do have to like it, but it to me it has sort of like helped me refine like what my own vision was, and
Yes.
then it becomes like if you have to be able to it forces you to understand what you're doing at a different level, because if you're gonna like not that you're gonna defend it in class to everybody, but if you're gonna defend it to yourself, you gotta like have a reason why. You have to like be able to explain to yourself, well, no, I am doing this on purpose because of X.
Mm.
And I think that's a good reason to do it. So those people, they've got their opinion, but they don't understand what I'm doing, and I do understand it. So that does take like some will and like a little bit of an independent spirit, and maybe even a little bit of spite from time to time. One of the legit, I think, criticisms of it is just like every other institution, the selection process has gotten super wonky.
Mm.
So my year was like I hate getting like too deep into this stuff, but like you could tell there was a deliberate, intentional demographic change in how students were selected. Starting in my year and in the years after was more and more obvious. Um, They're like the year ahead of me, there were two guys who were Iraq war vets. Kevin Powers, who wrote Little Yellow Birds, which is an amazing book. Brian Van Reet, who wrote a great book called Spoils, didn't do as well as Little Yellow Birds in the world, but it's an excellent book. He's a great writer. And then Philip Meyer was a couple years before, wrote The Sun. Macho, masculine shit. Um, those guys wouldn't get into those programs anymore. And I probably the same for me. I probably if I'd never gone and I applied now, I'm sure I wouldn't get in.
Mm,
So
mm. Oh, I want to get back to the that like point about masculinity and literature,
yeah,
which is tired, but there's an angle on it that
yeah.
I think is interesting in this book. But I just want to say as well with the MFA thing, I read this like really ridiculous Substack article. I don't know if you read it about the guy who like had this conspiracy theory that you have to spend like 25 grand to like get published these days because you got to
Ugh.
spend it on like conferences where you meet agents and all of this sort of shit, which is like complete like bullshit. Like,
Seems to be.
yeah, like, and
Though I don't know how to get an agent, so maybe
yeah,
he's right about that part.
yeah. I mean,
So I
I,
Oh,
don't
so you
know.
can't just like be like, I want to buy your services, and they're like, sweet.
you can, but like his argument is
Yeah.
that yeah, that's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to read your pitch. They're not going to
Mhm.
read the samples you sent them. And he says the only way to get in front of them is to like pay this money to do all this sort of shit.
Yeah.
And that's just not the experience of everyone I know who has an agent.
I
Like, you
It
know,
doesn't, I've never heard anything like that. Yeah.
yeah,
That sounds like more, honestly, that sounds like more resentment.
resentment. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Um,
think, without having read the article, that's
Yeah.
my
If
takeaway.
and
Yeah.
if anything, the pipeline actually is with, higher education, MFA in writing sort of thing, is the academic track, which is also like,
Mhm.
sort of drying up now.
It
Um,
is.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like that's and that was for a long time a problem with modern writing, is that too many writers were also academics.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, and it has a way of kind of diffusing you a little bit. I mean, there is a thing because you can't. The thing is, I think if you were to be, I know this for myself. Like, if I were writing fiction full time, which is like the dream, like that's enough income, that's all I need to do. I would be doing other stuff just because it's not. You can't spend 10, 12 hours a day every day, day after day doing it. I
mm.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
it's
your
funny.
limit? I usually
Yeah.
find that 3 hours a day is my absolute max. I cannot do any more than that. Like,
Yeah,
mm,
three are, I've had some like marathon sessions, but
mm,
it's not like I had two days in a row like that. So
mm,
yeah, probably like what I could do as like a steady burn, like almost every day is probably in that 3 hour range, or
mm.
like a 2 hour in the morning and a 2 hour later. Maybe I could maybe
Yeah.
pull off something like that. But it's funny is one of my mentors, I mentioned Alan Gerganis. He said no one writes for more than 4 hours a day, and if they say they are, they're lying.
Mm, mm. Yeah.
It's
I
like,
only do
okay,
if I've got like a deadline or something that I've got
sure.
to.
Yeah, yeah. I think his point was like you can like here
Yeah.
and there cram, but like nobody's cruising speed.
Mm.
Maybe
Yeah.
Stephen King is. Maybe there's like a
Philip K.
handful of
Dick
people.
probably,
Philip
Yeah.
K.
Philip
Dick
K. Dick.
probably
Yeah.
but
was.
he was on
Yeah.
meth, so
Yeah.
Right, right, right. I could if I was on speed, I could probably crank it.
oh
I'd probably
yeah.
do six. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like even if you're on speed, you wouldn't like do the whole day. Like you would just,
Right.
you'd find something else to do. You'd have to clean the house or something,
Yeah.
like
Something. Yeah.
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 That's why I don't think, I used to think for me writing full time was the dream,
Hmm.
but it's actually not. It is actually that those 3 hours a day and then just doing whatever you want for the rest of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess that's
Mm.
what people mean when
Yeah,
they
yeah.
say full time.
That's what I
Like,
mean. I don't, I
yeah,
just wish that when I was done with my 3 hours, I didn't like immediately have like work
work.
emails to respond to and,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah.
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 The great thing I used to do was this is the great thing about email jobs. They have their downsides, obviously, as a
Mhm.
writer because you're writing all day as well, so it kind of tires you out. But it's just like writing on company time. That's like the best little hack. when nothing's happening, just like do,
Yeah.
yeah, just
Yeah.
move the mouse so
Yeah.
your Teams thing is active or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Like,
Right. No comment.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so I did want to talk about as well with you and I have spoken about this idea of the literary man, and
Mm.
that I think we talked about this before on the last episode, but literary masculinity is disappearing and all
Yeah.
this sort of shit.
Right.
And often I feel that the kind of response to this is like really over the top. Like it's super like it's usually like really kind of online right-wing guys who like make
Mm.
the super misogynistic like novel or whatever, which can be fun. Like you can
Sure.
find a sort of like um I don't know, like a kind of vitality in that that's kind of ridiculous, you know. But
Mhm.
what I really appreciated about this book in particular was you had the guys talk to each other, all of the characters. It's very male
Mhm.
in the sewers. The guys talk to
Yeah.
each other in a way that's very real to the way that men speak to each other. But also you have this corresponding element of Jim's family as well. And so his wife and his and the kid aren't just this sort of like uh schmaltzy talisman or something like that. Like, and it's just so much more real than this like,
Mm.
rugged masculinity. Like, and then he
Right.
goes home
Right.
to his family. Like, there were the characters in his family were real as well, which I liked because
I
you
really
know,
appreciate that.
yeah, well, like literary masculinity doesn't mean that like I don't know, women don't have interiority or like don't
Right.
like
Right.
aren't
Yeah.
characters.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, like the one of the character cliches that I hate the most is the wife whose role in the plot is to basically be a nag.
Yeah.
Like the sort of famous example is Skylar from
Yeah.
Breaking Bad,
Yeah.
right? And, I understand, believe me, from like a plot standpoint, I understand the convenience of that as a figure, right? Because then it's like you immediately have like a quote unquote enemy antagonist like in arm's reach. Work plot wise, it does wonders, but I hate it. It's
It's
like,
cheap conflict. Like
mhm,
when it's like when there's this rule of thumb that says in kind of more generic books, I guess, that like every scene should have some kind of conflict. Like someone
yeah,
wants something and something is like blocking them from getting it. And in the kind of books where, you have an overarching conflict or whatever, it's usually the wife. It's just or
right.
the woman who's in the way, which
That's what
can
Michael
Right.
work.
Crichton novels are like.
Yeah.
He does as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's just bitterness from his divorces and stuff like that.
Yeah. Fair. I mean, yeah, fair. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. There is this way it becomes an easy way to drum up conflict. And I think there's more interesting places to find conflict than that, I guess.
Mm.
And you think about it too, it's like I mean, this is kind of an old saw, but it's like when you're a little kid, I don't know how your parents were, but like what's worse if your dad is like actually angry at you or he just does the I'm disappointed in you thing.
Mm.
Like, oh, the disappointment thing
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah.
Because the angry thing, you can just be like, well, he's a jerk, whatever, right? You can like set yourself in opposition to it. But it like, so, there's something to me like that, just like disappointment or that kind of more quiet sort of opposition. Or it's like, and I think in the Earthen Dark, his wife still loves him, but there's also this like little bit of like, hey man, what are you doing? Like,
Mm.
are you gonna do something about this situation? Like, what's happening here?
Mm.
Yeah. So to me, there's much more texture there, and that's much more like real life. I mean, I think people who even have like really great marriages, there is still that little bit of like trying not to let them down, trying to like live up to the person you could be for them, trying to not let yourself down, you know, yeah. So that stuff is much richer territory to me than just like, well, she's a bitch and you know,
Got to
Yeah.
yeah.
get down
And
into
they
the
seem
sewer to get away from her.
yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah,
they
exactly.
and
Yeah.
they seem like this is I mean I hate to give relationship advice to our listeners, but like they seem like friends, and that's what I think the best relationships are. You are
Mhm.
friends first, rather than just
Yeah.
like, there's and with friends, there's a kind of like, yeah, sorry, right-wing nut jobs. There's a kind of
Right.
equality between people when there's a
There is.
friendship there. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm speaking as a gay man here, so maybe it's different
Yeah.
for straight people.
No,
But
I
yeah,
think it's still true. I mean,
yeah,
if you want it to not suck, it should
yeah,
be. Like
yeah.
it's not gonna be fun for you. Like uh, as a man, it's not gonna be fun either if it's
Yeah.
that situation isn't like the archetypal, right wing, I guess, sort of
Mm.
idea of that. That's not a fun way to live, in my opinion. I don't
And it's
find
just
that.
also just not practical in the modern world. Like,
No.
you kind of have to do household chores these days if you're a man. Like,
Mhm.
not because
Yeah.
both people have to work. So one person
Right.
can't be like full time at home all the time. So, you know,
Right, right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So you got to be more realistic about these things for sure.
yeah,
And yeah, and I think that in literature, I think that's sort of not necessarily like the household economics or whatever, but just this notion that I don't know. There's this notion that everybody's a full human being that has a full reality. Like I don't know if that makes me, a bleeding heart liberal. I guess if it does, then it does. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's
I think
definitely a lot
everybody
of
pretty much
that.
has a rich inner life.
mm,
So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
gotten
guess,
to that like saturation point online with the like right wing stuff where like it is kind of like anything normal or any opinion like that is like makes you like at risk of like I've got to like make people know that I'm not a libtard though.
right.
It's
Exactly,
like I do the
exactly.
dishes
Yeah.
sometimes, but I'm not a libtard.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I clean up after myself. Is that
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Does that make me a socialist? Like what? Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, totally. That's so true. But yeah, I like that because yeah, like you're saying, everyone has a rich inner life. It might not be as like, it might not be the ways in which you have a rich inner life, but like that's what you're trying to do with capital L literature. And if you want to
Yeah.
return with a V to that, like you kind of have to go in that direction, rather than
Yeah.
just
I
what a
100%
bitch.
with you there. Right, exactly. It doesn't, yeah, exactly. No,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm 100% with you. Well, that's something I'm like trying to do with this book too, or and maybe just like my overall writing project is, you know, trying to take some sort of like high concept, like speculative fiction stuff, which I love, and trying to marry that with, to me, what is like the best of sort of modernist literature, this interiority, fully dimensional human beings interacting with each other that have complicated emotional stuff that feel two things at the same time sometimes, right? Like trying to marry that with like a concept that, you know, Philip K. Dick might cook up. Um, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's the nexus, I suppose, that I'm like trying to write stuff at, for
Yeah,
good
I
or
love that.
for
And I
better
think,
or worse.
yeah, I love that. And I think that's where a lot of people are kind of heading. A lot of writers that, we all interact with and have had on our shows and stuff. Like they do that. Yeah, it's like it's kind
Yeah.
of like the pulp sensibilities and content, if you want to call it that,
Right.
with a kind of literary flair, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which to some
Yeah.
extent
So
has always
yeah.
been there, like with some
Oh,
writers, like you said, like Philip K. Dick. But like
yeah.
I think it's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, that's part of one of sort of the richnesses of literature. I mean, there is also this thing too where, because in thinking about it's weird because you don't want to just write stuff that's okay, I'm going to write this because I know an audience is going to like it, right? It's got to be
Mm.
something I want to do. But I do pay attention to like how my attention works. This is something I've been trying to
Mm.
do in the last, I don't know when, like really pay attention to like what catches my attention and how I pay attention to stuff. And the one thing I do know is like literary realism. I know there's great stuff there. Some of my favorite books fall strictly in that camp, and I know there's good stuff coming out now, but also know that I just scroll right past it.
Mm.
Um, it just doesn't grab me. If it's like, this is a love story about what I don't give a shit.
Mm,
Like,
mm.
is there a monster? Is there a ghost? Like,
Yeah.
like, and not that it has to be just about that, but I need something. I need something that's going to grab my attention. And I think maybe there's a part of me that's intentionally also trying. Well, I like that stuff. So like I wanna put it in there. But in this sort of attention economy that we're in too, it's like if you're going to stand out at all and be of interest to people, there's got to be something in there that's sort of novel and interesting and eye-catching and a heartbreaking romance set as the Berlin Wall falls. Like nobody cares. It already happened. We already did that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, now there's like stories about romances between minotaurs and women who milk
Right.
them. So like,
Mm.
and I think
Not my
that's,
kind of thing,
yeah,
but
but
I will stop scrolling for a second,
yeah, yeah.
which
I kind of
Yeah.
is,
appreciate
yeah.
it though. Like I kind of appreciate all that like romance slop. And I get the critiques that people say like, "Oh, people are reading more than ever." And like there's like the goose meme that's like, "Yeah, but what are they reading?" sort of thing. A
Yeah.
goose
Right,
chasing up
right.
and it's that
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
like I kind of get where people are coming from, right? That it can't just be like a simple love story. Like just give it
Right.
a little bit of a something
Yeah.
else,
Yeah,
like
put something in there. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
what
I
book
think
is just a simple love
yeah,
story though? Like, even like if it's just about no,
it's a
no
good
book is just
question.
like two people
mm,
falling in love. There's always some kind of external conflict or something fucked up going on or whatever.
That's
You
a
mm,
know,
good point.
so,
Yeah.
like yeah,
yeah.
that would be boring if it was just like, oh, it was just our first date and we really got along together.
But
Right,
I also
right,
think
right.
I also
It's a
think
very
it's
good
a
point. Yeah.
yeah, I also think it's a skill issue because like when people are complaining about what you're saying, the attention economy and like I don't know, star-crossed lovers during the Blitzkrieg or something like that. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. That does not blow my skirt up at all.
Mhm.
And it's the Blitzkrieg. It's kind of exciting.
Right.
There's
Mm.
explosions and
Sure.
shit like that,
And
but
it
like
still might be super good, is the
yeah,
thing. It
Yeah.
still might
but
be
the
amazing.
likelihood that
Yeah.
it is that it's slim chances that it will be because
Yeah.
I think you have to make that like really to grab people's attention now. You have to
Mhm.
there's got to be something else in the writing rather than the
Mm.
novelty of the situation itself.
Mhm.
So whereas you can be like novelty forward with your book, or you can like kind of be novelty forward with the way that you depict it, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think of that. I have this, it might be kind of cheesy, but I think I came up with it. I have this way of thinking about a story as so I was in the Boy Scouts and my favorite thing to do was build the fire. And I still love a fire. If I'm out with some people and nobody's taking care of the fire, that will become my job. And I will just, right. I love it. I like starting them, not in a pyromaniac way, but like setting it all up and getting the wood go. I love it. Um, but I got thinking about this, contemplating the fire and why I like it so much. And I think about stories sort of structurally in that thing. And there's fundamentally three aspects to a fire. There's the flames and the heat that you can kind of see from a distance. And if you're walking across the plain in the middle of the night and freezing to death, you'd be like, I got to go over there. Um, but then there's the structure of the fire. So, you built a teepee or you build a log cabin or whatever, the structure that keeps the thing continuously going. And then there's the coals, the sort of furnace of the thing. And I think a good story's got these three things. The outward part, the flames and the heat, that's kind of the gimmick. That's me saying, that's the little blurb that's on the front of my book. That's like, a mental labyrinth in the sewers of Detroit, only escapable by death. That's the flames. That's like, oh, what? What's he talking about? What's this? Uh, but then actually having a plot that works, that like one thing leads to the next, and it kind of keeps itself going until the end. That's that structure. But then you also have to be like saying something. I think of like theme or soul or poetry or something as being that furnace in the middle. And I feel like if it's not operating on all three of those levels, it's really going to be missing something, I guess.
Can I just take like a guess at what I think the coals of your book is? It's kind of
Sure,
like a
yeah.
guy, Jim, without spoiling the book,
Sure.
is kind of like someone who's not taking control of his life. He's just sort of like being swept in the current of it. And then,
Mhm.
yeah, by the end he does take control.
Yeah, that's ultimately what I was going for as like a yeah, and that's like an old that's an old theme, right? That's as old as stories are. It's like
Mm,
a hero's journey kind of thing, but a little bit truncated in a way. But yeah, it's like he's kind of a, I like him all throughout, but he's kind of a dweeb in the beginning. Sort of like doesn't really have much backbone, doesn't really have much agency, as we would say now, and then hopefully by the end he has some.
Mm.
mm,
Yeah, and that's
So yeah,
a very ancient story structure, like the
yeah,
catabasis,
yeah,
going
yeah.
yeah.
into the underworld, and
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I almost called it. I think for a while the working title was that, but it turns
really.
out that what's her name, RF
RF
Kuang or
Kong, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
She did that. I
She
think
wrote
that's
that.
like a
Yeah.
Persephone retelling or something, isn't it? Like,
I don't know much about it, to be honest. I
yeah.
think it's partially a campus novel,
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't actually know. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I
What's it
guess my
called?
book's partially a
Catabasis.
campus novel. What's that?
That book you're talking about, is it called Catabasis?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's a campus novel, did you say, Brad?
I was gonna say the Earthen Dark is like a tiny, it's like
Yeah,
one
sort of. Yeah, yeah.
50th a campus novel. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
there's a one campus novel chapter, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is actually interesting because there's a the the novel I just wrote, well, I wrote it like I finished it a couple of years ago, but I'm still working out what to do with it. Like one third of it is a campus novel, and it actually does have something to do with, you know, being thrust out of academia as well. So
Sure.
there's a lot of
Yeah, all
this, I
right.
think, a lot of this I think of like various different people who were in that space getting out of it and like
Mhm.
I don't processing that because I've read a lot of that lately. So maybe it's just
Really
a
interesting.
part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah, I think yeah, probably
Mm,
is. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people, it's funny, my the guy that edited this book for me, he's a guy I've known for years and years, and he's a pretty successful writer in his own right, writes very different sorts of stuff. I think he's got like a crime novel coming out this year, and he's written some great nonfiction stuff. But I've known him for a long time. We vibe together and whatever, and he's editing it. And I was kind of worried because I don't really, I'm not as in touch with him as I used to be, and so I didn't really know where he is on like political, social, cultural stuff. I was kind of worried that he was going to take issue with that part. I mean, I was going to write it that way anyway, but I
mm,
thought maybe I'd end up having to talk to him about it for 2 hours, or he,
Mm.
whatever. And he loved that part. He was like, "Yeah, man,
mm,
that is basically like you distilled what like half of my friends have gone through." It's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, cool." And then it's sort
mm.
of an exaggerated form, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
This
I mean it's been called, well, I mean, obviously the novel isn't about that solely, but it's featured in there. But novels about that are called like the cancellation novel. You know, like you've heard of
okay,
the
okay, yeah.
you might have heard of
Yeah.
this genre. Um,
Sure. Yeah, I
but
could see that.
then I
Yeah.
feel like if you base a whole novel around it, it becomes kind of like you can smell the resentment. Like we were
Yes.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yes.
resentment before. But like if it's just a feature in like a story that doesn't really, it's not about that, it becomes
Mhm.
you can see the kind of cultural currents, so to speak,
Right.
like
Right.
that have happened recently. And, you know, people like Jacob Savage have written about this, but like the
Mhm.
excision of certain demographics from
Yeah. Yeah.
previously
Yeah.
high status.
And,
Yeah.
and I was very concerned with making sure that that didn't take over the book, that
Yeah.
Mm.
was that we're dealing with uh context around that, consequences around that, and that part of it was just another part of the plot. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, for sure. Because it could get tired and dated, super dated too,
Yeah.
if it becomes the whole what the whole thing is. Yeah.
Yeah. The I remember reading, have you read Stephen King's On Writing?
I have. It's been a
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time, but yes.
Yeah. I remember reading something in that of all the like toolbox things that he suggests or whatever, one thing that's always stuck with me is just a little, I think it might even be a throwaway paragraph where he talks about people love to read about jobs and work. Like,
It's true.
and I
Yeah.
felt that in here as well, like the detail you kind of go into when they're working in the sewers. Um, I was just like, I just remembered that passage because like this is so
Mm.
interesting. Like I could read a
Yeah,
whole book of about
yeah.
sewer workers, like,
Yeah.
and it's
Dude, you
just
know what's funny is
yeah.
my boss has read it. So
Mm,
weirdly enough, I work in the engineering world, not a lot of literary people, but the guy who owns the company I work for, part of the reason I think he hired me is because we nerded out about books in my interview. And great, he's a great guy. But he's read The Earthen Dark, and it's the only person in that world that has. And he's like, yeah, I mean, I like this beginning part, but I don't know that other people are gonna like this, just like talking about sewer work stuff. And I was like, trust me, people are gonna love that.
mm,
It's like,
mm.
Someone's
really?
probably
Like,
like
yeah,
disappointed. They're like, damn, there's not enough
right.
sewers in it. Too much supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't, but
Yeah,
honestly, Stephen King's right, and I don't
yeah,
know
he is.
why he's right. Like I
Yeah.
cannot for the
Yeah.
life of me understand why I am so fascinated by other people's jobs. Like, but I love reading about it.
It's
Yeah.
jobs and like westerns for instance, not a big genre, not a I don't seek out a lot of westerns, but part of what I like about westerns when I do read them is all this shit about like taking care of the horse, like all this just like little problem solving stuff and like names for knots and like, oh, that's how they do that. I love that stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
I
know
could
what
read
that
like
is.
a full chapter of just exposition on that sort of stuff,
This is how they have
Yeah,
to have like textbooks be written. Like get someone to
right.
put it in a novel form
Yeah.
so you can actually
That's a
read it.
great
And then you
idea. That's a great idea. But here's, I think you're talking about literary masculinity for the guys out there. Get some just dudes doing shit, and they don't have to be like in battle. They don't have to
Mm,
be like, it doesn't have to be any of that. Just guys, competence porn. Just guys doing stuff.
mm,
Yeah,
mm. Yeah, that might be a male thing actually. Like I don't know if
I think
female
it is.
readers would like that,
Right.
but
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we
that's
have to
like
put some like
no
office
cut.
drama in for them.
yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right, right. That's like No Country for Old Men. Great movie. The whole thing. Love the whole thing, right? But part of the thing that's cool is watching both Llewellyn Moss and Anton Chigurh how they like solve the little problem that they're dealing with, right?
Mm.
Like how they manage that thing, how he hides the money, how Anton Chigurh, he's wounded, how does he get the wound taken care of? Like these little procedural things that they just know they have figured out how to, people love that stuff.
Yeah,
Or
it's like Day of the
guys love
Jackal.
that
Like,
stuff.
how are they gonna like transport the gun into France and all of
Yeah.
that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Like, those are kind of like the best bits.
Yeah, that stuff's great.
Yeah, yeah. It's like operations brain. Like how am I gonna
Yeah,
like
Logistics.
make this happen? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
for
no,
sure.
cool. Like, and I did want to like related to that. I did want to ask you like, what kind of writer you are? Are you
Mm.
a gardener or an architect? Because that sort of stuff, I think, when you're describing, I mean, if you've done the job, I think it's very easy to just sort of, you know, like
Yeah,
go off on it and not really have to have a plan. But do you plan, or are
right.
you sort of a gardener?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the one just to start this, if I didn't have to do any additional research,
Yeah.
really. Like this is just stuff I was familiar with. So it's sort of lucky there. If I had to read about this or talk to people, it would have taken another year or whatever.
Mm.
But I try to strike a balance between the two. So I plot out a bit. I have an outline, like the book I'm working on now. I have a pretty decent outline of maybe two-thirds to three-quarters of it. But then I try to leave room for spontaneity in there. And so the way that I think about it is it's like take the gardener and the architect, like be a gardener for a while, be an architect for a while, fold them together, and then like just keep doing that basically. Because there's such good stuff from both of them. Like I want a plot that makes sense that one thing leads to another and then things come back that were early on and they matter later on. That stuff's really hard to accomplish if you're not thinking somewhat in architecture brain. But oftentimes the best stuff I come up with is just like flow state mid writing. So you want to make, excuse me, you want to make room for that as well. So I really try to strike a balance between the two of them. But then part of that process is also just like probably editing almost too much, just constantly going back and constantly going back and constantly going back. And it's like, okay, now I got to thread that thing through. Oh, he said that thing on page 67, but if I do this other thing on page 12 and then on page 32, that thing on page 67 is really going to hit, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of both of them taking sort of almost taking turns
I
being
feel
one
like
and then the
there
other.
should be a new category and it should be called something like landscape
Landscaping.
gardener. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
landscape.
thinking
Yeah,
that exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's gonna be someone who maps plans the garden out, you know.
Plans the garden
right,
out, but like,
right.
if you might put a wild shrub over here or something rather than a topiary
Yeah,
or something. Yeah.
right, right, right. Yeah, and you got to adjust on the fly a little bit. Yeah,
Hmm.
for
Yeah,
sure.
like in
Yeah,
mid-June,
I
there's
did.
roses will bloom and it'll bring in the lorikeets or whatever.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I think I try to strike the balance. I mean, I do. And the other thing I guess is I kind of admire both approaches also. Like,
Mm.
I think it is cool to like, all right, I'm gonna write every scene down on a note card. And I mean, I have this is my note card deck for the book I'm working on now. I like that stuff, but like, man, I like getting weird with it in the spaces between where everything is kind of nailed down. I like going into a scene and being like, okay, this is the 3 or 5 or 12 things this scene needs to accomplish. But then as I'm writing it, it's I can hit them whenever. It's just as long as I hit them all by the time I'm done, it doesn't matter what or I like wandering in with that kind of approach.
Mm, mm. And do you use tarot as well sometimes?
Yeah, I do.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. Tarot is a couple aspects I use tarot. So the Earthen Dark it's basically follows 4 cards in sequence in the major arcana. So that's in there, and then there are a couple little aesthetic touches that are like actual direct references to the tarot, but I tried to hide it pretty well. But then I do like tarot readings for individual characters. Um, Not everybody, but like all the main characters. Like Jim had the protagonist of the Earthen Dark. I gave him a bunch of tarot readings at different times just to like what's going on, trying to get into his subconscious, unconscious a little bit. And then I also usually find their people have given them different names. I call them signifier cards. So there's a way of reading tarot in which what you do is you're not so much getting like a spread, but you're finding what your signifier is, and that's usually how people will find it if they have no idea. Is you shuffle the deck and then you flip through until you come to your first court card, and that's sort of like supposed to be like a snapshot of your personality. So all the I don't know all the sewer guys in the Earthen Dark and a couple of the other people all have signifier cards that I know what they what they are and they mean something to me. So yeah, I use it a bit. There's not a whole lot of like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Throw a card.
yeah.
This is what I'm gonna do. But it definitely factors in.
Do you ever throw a card and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that? Like,
When it
I
comes
feel
to the
like I
writing
would,
stuff, yeah.
yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I would do that. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It-
yeah.
yeah. When it comes to the writing stuff, it wasn't like picking the signifiers for all of them, which was something I'd never really tried to do before. That wasn't random. That was
Mm,
like, no, Ray is this one, Jim
mm,
is this one. Like, but then the thing that was good about that is that it served as like a reminder to me. It's like goes in their little dossier. It's like, okay, that's what this guy is like. He's more emotional than he is intellectual, or
mm,
he's more intuitive than he is about his senses or whatever. So
mm.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, it's an
it's worth
interesting.
trying. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know much about tarot. I might have give it a
yeah,
go. Um,
yeah.
the element of I guess, for the more random stuff would be interesting to me, but I don't know enough about it to do that court stuff that you're
It's
talking about.
it
So,
take yeah, it takes a little bit. I think you
mm,
can. I mean, you could start by just well, I mean, you could find you can also just figure out what you think your signifier should be. I mean,
mm,
partially what it is you just think about, am I more basically, am I more in about my intuition and instinct or about my feelings and emotions, or am I more about my sort of intellect and problem solving, or am I more about like the sensory world, like making things with my hands and acquiring things? Which one of
mm,
those are you? And then each one of those has like 4 different sort of gradations. Not gradations isn't the right word. There's a feminine masculine split in there. And there is a sort of are you aspiring or are you in the thick of it split.
Mm.
So, yeah. So
Okay.
if you're like an aspiring intellectual, you'd be a page of swords. If you're
Oh,
you're a master builder, you might be a king of pentacles.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I do know, like, I know more about astrology than tarot, and
Okay. Yeah.
I'm very Gemini. So I'm Gemini
Okay.
everywhere, rising, like, or
Okay.
every
Okay.
like, and yeah. So
Yeah.
there's yeah. So you look at my natal chart, and it's just like Gemini, 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 Gemini.
Ah, okay. Okay. Well, that's
So
my
yeah,
wife. My wife is a Gemini, so
yeah, yeah.
I'm
I'm
familiar.
sorry.
Yeah. 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 Multiple. It's like multiple personality disorder, sort of.
Yeah, I'm a podcaster. I'm a writer.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
me. That's me.
Yeah. Let's say
Oh,
I'm in Aries, which is also difficult to live with. So
mm, yeah.
yeah, I just
Oh.
smash my head into stuff until it breaks.
Yeah, I'm a
Like metaphor.
Capricorn.
All right.
So
I don't know
is
much
Aries
about a Capricorn.
water or
Aries is fire.
Fire.
fire? Okay, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
Earth, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
Ah,
know a lot
okay.
about it either.
That's
And
why
I'm
you're
air.
chill. That's why you're so chill, man. Yeah. I wish I had more Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm air, so I'm just floating around. Like
Just float around. Yeah. I love
um I wanted to ask you as well, like,
it.
because
Sure.
one of your strengths, I think you see this in your podcast, but you kind of see it in this book as well, is you love to research and
Mm,
so did you do heaps for this book? Obviously you didn't need to for the job stuff, but like
yeah.
all of the other stuff without giving too many spoilers because yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's not too much of a, there's a sort of a book within the book, and the
Mm,
book,
Mm.
without giving away how it fits into the plot, the book is, it's sort of like an academic book about uh, underground, like myths about underground, science about underground, history of man's relationship to ground. What does the underground mean? It's sort of like, in a way, is like an academic attempt at answering that question you brought at the beginning. Is like, why did guys dig holes, right? And so I did do a bunch of research on that, but honestly, I guess I was originally, why I got into that is I think I was sort of trying to answer kind of that question that you posed at the beginning. Like, what is this resonance? Like, why does it, why? And part of it was, for me, going underground, it feels different. I feel like
mm,
I feel like I'm in a different space. Like, what is up with that? And then just really thinking about it, it's like, yeah, we bury dead people. What's that all about? And like all these various things, and then the whole Hollow Earth thing. And then it turns out that like every culture has some lore about a creature that lives underground. Like, just sort of, what are all these? What are we all trying to say to ourselves? So to figure that, I did do a ton of research about that kind of stuff. And a lot of that was just honestly fun for me.
mm,
It's like
mm.
looking into a lore about elves and mining lore. And I read a great book about the history of tunneling, which was actually fascinating. So, because even though I am a sewer engineer, I've only really watched one tunnel be dug. So, in terms of there's open cut, which is you just dig from the surface, you just dig a big trench and you put stuff in it. But like actually going underground with like a machine or some equipment and like making forward progress tunneling, I've only really seen that once or twice. So that was interesting. So I did a ton of research on that, and that was fun for me. And I think I needed a reason to sort of shoehorn it into the book to some extent, but people seem to like it, so I'm glad I did.
No, I love that
Yeah.
too. Like, it's a favorite thing I like to do when I'm writing as well is like just just chuck some research you put in. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
Like who
yeah,
cares? Like,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
people like it. It's just the
Yeah.
They
same
do.
same thing
Yeah.
with the work stuff. Like, people
Yeah.
like
Well,
reading
I
it.
think I think people do like to learn a little bit when they read a book. Like, even if that's not the full motivation and the real driving engine of it, I do think people like to come away thinking like, huh, I know some stuff that I didn't know before.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
The
that's
burial of the dead thing is like it's such an interesting question. Like it's we don't think about it enough. Like why is it in the
yeah,
ground? Like and
right.
you think about like the underworld and things like that and like the idea that after death you descend and in a lot of cultures, right? So
Oh yeah,
why
yeah,
is the
many. Yeah.
underworld like I mean, it's called underworld, but why is the afterlife that is sometimes bad, sometimes good, sometimes kind of
Neutral-ish.
neutral?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is
Like
that underground?
the Jewish
Yeah,
afterlife is like kind of just
Sheol,
like you're
is that
just
what
in
it's?
like yeah, you're just
Yeah.
in like a dark basement is what it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Why?
not. Yeah.
Like, why
I
isn't it
don't
just like,
know.
why isn't it just like in the stars? Like, because, heaven is the good place, right? In a
Right,
lot of
right.
cultures. But why isn't it
Hmm.
just another place in the heavens,
Right.
Like, why is
I
it underground? Like,
it's a very good question. I mean, I think there's almost something so, and this is something I was trying to get into in the book is there is there we do have this sense, I think, as people, especially if you have any sort of spiritual sensibilities, and like the Gnostics would take this to an extreme. We do
mm,
have the sense that we're sort of like trapped in matter in some
mm,
ways, right? Like, you know, we're gonna hopefully the idea is we're gonna live on beyond this and we'll be sort of not trapped in matter. And I think there's almost talking about things being in the ground, the underworld being afraid of it as this negative place we might go to is like a amplification of that. It's like even more trapped in matter. It's like you're going to go
mm,
even deeper into this sort of trap that we're in. But then that doesn't really square with the burial thing though, because we bury people. That's like an honorable thing to do for them, and people want to be buried. And I think that's almost like a different subconscious desire we're playing out to somehow be like reinstantiated in our home, like reintegrated into our home somehow.
mm,
Like I had this really interesting thing a couple years ago. So my parents are both from the same place where I live. I live in Michigan, so we point at our hand to say where we're from,
the
right? So
the mitt. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
so
baseball mitt.
so
Yeah.
my parents are from up in the thumb, as we call it,
Hmm.
just middle of nowhere. And I went up there a lot when I was a kid because my grandparents were still up there or whatever. And they bought a burial plot for themselves because they're old and it's gonna happen. They're pretty realistic about that. They bought a burial plot for themselves, and then they asked me if I wanted to be buried there. And I was like, that's not my, like, you guys don't understand. That's not my home. Like, that's
Mm,
not, I don't belong. Like, I get why you guys want to be there, but I don't belong there. That doesn't make any sense. And then, and then it did start making me ask the questions like, well, where would I want to be? Where do I want to be sort of put? And I kind of know now, but it took me a little while. But there is something about sort of being reintegrated into, and even when people get cremated, they oftentimes they do something with the ashes and they sort of mix it back in with the dirt. And there's
mm,
this sort of acknowledgement that you're returning, you're being disseminated instead of trapped in matter or something. I don't know. It is fascinating.
mm.
Yeah.
Well,
I wrote this
Adam,
whole book and I still don't know.
yeah, Adam is made from clay. So like
From
that
clay? Yeah.
from the biblical sort of that's actually what the name means, I think, isn't it? Like
It,
in
it it
Hebrew.
does mean
Yeah.
something.
Something
Yeah,
like
it does
birth
something
or
clay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um
he's made from clay and supposedly we're called humans, according to Giambattista Vico, we're called humans. The word human comes from the same root as humus, as dirt.
mm,
And
mm,
according to him, we call, and I haven't seen a better explanation, we call ourselves that because it's like we're the people who bury their dead.
mm. Although
Yeah,
there are exceptions to this. I think is it
there
the
is.
Zoroastrians who have the towers, like the sky
Yeah.
tower. I always thought that was like super metal how they did that. Like, so they don't bury their dead because it's some kind of purity thing, I guess. They just put them on the
Mhm.
top of towers for like birds of like carrion eaters
Yeah.
to eat,
Right,
basically.
right, right, right. But
Um,
even there, you have this distribution. It's like this
yeah.
reintegration into things. They're not burying it. They have real, the Zoroastrians, and I'm no expert, but they're really sensitive to like elemental stuff. Fire and
Mm,
water is super significant to them, and earth and air is as well, obviously. So yeah, that stuff is really deep in their lore. But yeah, even that, but yeah, and there are cultures that burn their dead instead of
mhm,
bury. So it's not like this total universal, but it's pretty freaking common. We've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of
mm.
years,
And
apparently.
even then I think like I think it's the Zoroastrians who do the towers or something like that. It's a
I know
Manichaean like
Tibetans do it. Some
yeah.
Tibetans do it as well.
But then
Yeah.
I think they throw the bones in the middle of the tower anyway, so it's a form of burial anyway. So it's
Right.
like
Right.
eventually it
Right.
gets there, like
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Breaking it
so
down. Yeah.
yeah. So I wonder if people bury at sea. Are there any cultures that do that?
But
But
probably those like cultures that like live in like
the
stilt houses out in the
Vikings.
water. Vikings probably. Yeah, they would
Mm,
set the boat on
Yeah.
fire and push it out to sea. Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
That's
Yeah,
probably
that
because the ground was too hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
And
too
like
Yeah.
icy.
I always imagine
Yeah.
like Japanese cremate just because they don't have that much ground to spare.
Mm.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, they
Yeah.
can't be taking it
Yeah.
up with cemeteries, you know.
Right. And there's also like a tidiness to Japanese culture. It's like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll get you down to this big first. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but that is interesting how it's very yeah, I love that origin of the word human too, but it's very
Mm.
interesting how it's just such a I wouldn't say it's like a universal, but it's very, very common, like
Yeah.
burying the
And
dead and
even
stuff.
I think even people who don't see themselves as particularly religious also like it's significant to them too. Like,
Yeah,
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 I want
yeah.
to be
Bury me
buried. I
under
want to be buried in my hometown or whatever.
or under a
Yeah.
tree so I can like
Mm.
Right.
fertilize the tree and life goes on
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there's a lot of interesting stuff there that we just don't think about. And that's a good part
Mhm.
about the good thing about literature is you can think about this stuff, right?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and that's yeah, I'm sort of obsessed with those kind of when you can catch them, these sort of like, yeah, why do we do that? Oh yeah, nobody knows why we do that. Like,
Could
but
it
we
be
all
like
do it and we
some
feel weird if we don't.
Yeah.
like return to the egg thing, like we're birthed from the earth or something, and then like you replant yourself to then so you get it to be rebirthed again to keep it like eternal kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, like yeah, like there's this sense is like we're kind of we're this we're assembled out of this matrix, and if we don't go back into it, then we don't you'll never
Mm.
you'll never come out of it again,
Or like the
right?
urukai getting like pulled out of the like the ground or whatever, and then yeah, you need to replant it at the end of it.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
I don't
it's very interesting stuff.
I don't think this is ever going to happen, but let's say we become a interplanetary species, right? I
Yeah,
actually think that most people would not be cool with being buried on Mars or the moon or something. They'd want to get their bodies
I
sent
think
back to Earth.
Mm.
I think
Unless there was,
most people
yeah,
would.
unless there was like a full civilization on like Mars or the moon or something.
Yeah, if
But
you
even,
well, it's even
Right.
like war, like they try to bring the bodies back to the country where you came from. You don't want to be buried in
yeah,
whatever Germany or
Right.
that'd
something like
suck.
Yeah.
I would not want to be buried
Yeah.
on the moon. Like,
yeah, they just have
No.
a like a
That's so,
graveyard planet. Like
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. That's unsettling somehow. Yeah.
yeah.
plus I guess
Yeah,
you want to
I don't
be
like it.
near where your family is. So what they got to like get in a rocket ship to go visit your grave.
To
Yeah,
go
and
visit your
also the moon was
grave.
installed, so when it's
Yeah,
Right.
uninstalled,
Apollo. Where's this?
you'll be taken away. So,
Yeah.
you'll
Yeah. When they do a
yeah,
firmware upgrade or whatever, you'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
be deleted. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read that thing about the moon, Brad,
A
about
little
like
bit. Yeah.
how weird it is, like all of
Mm,
the
It
maths around
rings
it
like
and
a
stuff?
bell and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah. I don't know what to make of that stuff, man.
And like
I like
yeah,
I don't dismiss it, but
there's
it's
certain
weird.
like kind of it's like Fibonacci shit but there's also like stuff about how it is direct something about its size is like directly tied to the female gestation period like just things like
Mm,
that and obviously the
mhm.
moon and women's periods and stuff is very like always been an
Synced up.
association yeah
Mm.
like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is weird the moon is weird
Did you
The
guys
moon
catch
is
the?
super weird.
I don't know if it happened on the other side of the world, but there was like a blood moon here recently, and like my dad texted me. He'll always text me if there's some astronomical thing going on. He's like, "Oh, blood moon tonight at 10:30," and I was like, "Oh, cool." Set an alarm, and he's like, "Oh, you might even be able to see it sooner." And then I went out at like 9 or something, and I've seen these blood moons before, and they're always kind of like you're like, "Yeah, I guess it's sort of reddish, whatever." But this one I
Right.
was like
Yeah.
absolutely transfixed to. I was just staring at it for too long to the point where I was like got scared. I like freaked myself out. I
Really?
was because it was like it was just like really red and it had like the red was like shifting, like this kind of like fiery
Whoa.
tentacle thing going across it.
Whoa.
And I was just like staring at it, and then I started being like, I shouldn't stare any longer. Like this is actually probably like wreaking havoc on my subconscious or something like that. Like some occult shit is happening right now. Like this
Right,
actually
right,
might be evil. But like it
right.
Did you
never
have a
like
gummy before?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. We're gonna have to look at the moon, aren't we? Yeah.
So I did consider that too, that it was partly to do with that. But it's not like I wasn't stoned the other times I looked at the moon, you know?
Right, right, right. No, the moon is weird. I don't know what's going on with it. I mean, I know there were at one point people were pointing out like weird stuff that they'd photographed, taking pictures of it, but I don't know if that was camera artifacts, but it does seem strange. I don't know what it would mean for it to be installed. Like, what does that even, who the fucking, like, who
Yeah.
installed it? It's
Yeah, isn't
Because
there
it,
like ancient kind of like things where they're just like the moon doesn't get referenced ever once until a certain point in history, and then starts,
supposedly, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it shows up at a specific time. Or there's two moon something. Yeah, there is like supposedly it like shows up at a specific time in the written record. It's like now there's a
Mm.
moon.
Yeah, and there's only
It's
like a theory about like how the science theory is the idea that another body crashed into Earth and then
mhm.
sort of became what the moon is today.
Hmm.
But like
Right.
what where there's not actually it's a theory. There's not
Right.
much proof for it.
The
Like
the astronomers are far too confident as far as
yeah,
I'm concerned. Like I'm
yeah.
glad they're doing what they do, but like sometimes the stuff that they say, they're like, yeah, man, you're probably in the right direction, but like you're pointing a little sensor at something light years away. Like we don't know.
Mm,
We don't know what the fuck's going
I
on out
remember like
there.
as a kid, yeah, like whenever they tell you something from like either like from ancient history or about like the other side of the
Yeah.
universe, and you just kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't know how they do that, but obviously they're scientists. They got their ways of figuring
Right.
that out. And then when you get older, you realize like, nah, these are just like theories. They're guessing.
mm,
Like even
Right.
I was watching
Right.
that new Attenborough thing on dinosaurs, and then it's going into like all of these things about their behaviors and stuff. And I'm just like, obviously these are just theories. Like no
mm.
one
Yeah.
knows if they did that. Like and now the dinosaurs have like more feathery kind of skin. It's like that's not what they
Right.
looked like when I was a kid, you know. So
Mm.
Right.
but they're
Right.
Have you
presenting it
have,
like you're watching it like you're like this is science, like this is all
Right.
verified facts, and it's just like
Right.
you got to like
Somebody
have
who's
it.
looked into it more than me. They must know.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
this really
I don't
funny
know.
funny meme I saw yesterday about like uh the trajectory of like what people viewed dinosaurs as, like
Yeah,
fossils
yeah,
and stuff. And it's like the first one is like pageantry, like in medieval times, of like a feathered
Mm.
dragon, right? Just sort of
Oh,
like
really? Okay.
up
Yeah.
on its legs. And then it like gradually goes through like the 19th century when they like did the bones and like made it kind of look weird. Then it gradually got more accurate. And then now it's come to today where it basically is a feathered dinosaur that looks like the first the
yeah.
pageantry thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So it's
yeah, they got
basically
it right the first
dragons.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's awesome.
No,
Yeah,
I
it's just
like
like a
that.
lion with a lizard tail and like eagle
Yeah.
wings and shit.
Yeah, a manticore. Yeah.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
yeah, that's what people need to write. A novel about manticores. There's not
Man,
enough
I could do
novels about
I
manticores.
like that.
Come on, Brad.
I've never read a
Yeah.
Manticore novel.
I
Yeah,
think
I'm
it's
not
like
even aware of one.
a lion's head, um, a eagle's body, and a scorpion's tail, or something like that.
That
Like,
sounds
yeah,
pretty badass.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That sounds pretty
What's the one that's
cool.
like that, but it also has like a snake for a leg or something?
Oh yeah, what is that one?
Some,
Yeah,
yeah, something.
Yeah. Yeah,
Esquilax.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, see, I can kind of envision it. It's like a scientific experiment gone awry, but it happens to like accidentally exactly match the profile of the manticore. And
Mm.
so then it leads to sort of disputes about what this thing is. And the guy who made it's like, well, I don't believe in manticores, so it can't be one. Like there's some good territory there for sure.
Mm,
Mm.
mm. So what? So you were telling us about your next novel. What's the next novel
hmm
going to be about?
Yeah, so it's true detective fan fiction. It's It's basically a season of True Detective, but it's set in 1934 Detroit, and it's got, so it's two cops solving a vaguely occult series of killings, but there's I'm packing it with a bunch of actual historical stuff. So the key murder that happens in it is an actual murder that took place in the 1930s in Detroit that remains unsolved to this day. And just to like tell you what it is, there was this guy named Bernard Evangelista. He was an Italian immigrant, and he had set up this like he wrote a crazy book called The Occulted History of the Universe or something like that that I did manage to find a PDF of. I'm probably the only person who's ever read it. And but he was like a healer. He would like bring people into his house and he'd do these ceremonies and heal them or whatever, right? It's sort of like a gypsy kind of thing. He had dolls that he made and a whole bunch of weird stuff. And then he was making a good living doing this, and he was murdered. Him and his whole family were murdered, and uh they cut his head off and they put it at his feet, sitting at his writing desk. And this has never been solved. Like all of the resources of the city of Detroit, which at the time was like the third or fourth biggest city in the United States, was doing really well, tons of money. They could not figure out who did this. So that's the sort of central launching point of this story. And because it's unsolved, I can do whatever I want with it, which is kind of cool. But it ties into a bunch of other historical Detroit stuff. A lot of people don't know there was in the 1920s and 1930s, the city was basically run by something called the Black Legion. And the Black Legion was a militant offshoot of the KKK. They'd been basically kicked out of the KKK because they wanted to overthrow the US government. And they eventually, at one point in the early 30s, they had the commissioner of police of Detroit was a member of the Black Legion. A bunch of business leaders were members of the Black Legion. A mayor of a city directly adjacent to Detroit was a member of the Black Legion. All these major players were members of a radical offshoot of the KKK. They mostly hated Catholics and communists, though. They weren't really particularly concerned about black people, apparently. But anyway, so they're somehow tied into all of this. There was also Nation of Islam, Malcolm X's thing started in Detroit, and there's some weird stuff that happened with the Nation of Islam when it was forming. That
Early in the
plays a role
30s.
in the 30s. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. So,
I didn't think it was that
so
early.
yeah, yeah. So there's a weird murder associated with the decapitation. Also, well, I don't know if he actually got. There's a strange murder associated with the Nation of Islam around that time too that never really made sense. And so pulling these elements together and then basically with the story structure of True Detective going on at the same time. So it's fun so far. I think it's going to be, I'm really happy with it so far. I think it's going to be really good. I think people are going to dig
Yeah,
it.
that sounds dope.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good. Do you have a conscious decision to like make every book different? Because from what I haven't read your first book, but like from what I can see, these three books seem very different in terms of subject
Yeah.
matter and
Yeah, yeah, I want and maybe this will end at some point. Maybe at some point I'll be like, I'll go back to retread some same ground. But yeah, I am deliberately trying to make each one different. I'm trying to find ways to both play to my strengths and do something that I haven't done before whenever I like pick a project or the project picks me or whatever. So yeah, there's definitely a conscious effort to try and make you'll be surprised, if you pick up the last one, you expect to just flip the page and it's going to be sort of more of the same. I'm hoping it's not. But with the same, I do think though, if you liked The Earthen Dark, you probably will like House of Sleep. And if you like House of Sleep, I think you'll like this book I'm writing now. I'm hoping that taste wise, they're, maybe in
yeah,
the
there's a
end,
sort
people
of
will
yeah,
argue over what's the favorite, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's a through line of like kind of occult kind of stuff, I'm guessing.
that's true.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
for sure.
I've only read
Yeah,
Earthen Dark. I haven't read House of
yeah,
Sleep, but
yeah.
it sounds very occulty, and I know
It
what
does
you're
have some
interested in
occult.
too. So
Yeah, yeah, it does have
Mm.
some occult stuff for sure. Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about that, working on that quite a bit. It's a slow process, but yeah, I'm got a couple chapters that are like almost done and a bunch that are in draft. So,
Mhm.
I'm relatively happy with where it's at in
Yeah.
terms of progress. So,
Yeah, and you've I recently I think you put it on Substack how you've come to terms with the fact that you're a slow writer. Like,
Yeah,
did you
yeah.
have a lot of anxiety over that or something? Like, what was the?
Yeah, I mean, I feel because it's I mean, House of Sleep came out in 2021. It was done mu maybe 6 months or a year before that. Um, so it took me like 4 years to get out, 5 years to get the Earthen Dark out. It was finished a year or so before it came out. Yeah, I think, as much as I might have a career as a writer, it would probably in some ways would benefit from me cranking them out a little bit faster. But then I also I guess I have come to accept it. I do take my time. I'm slow with it. I sort of marinate on stuff. I let the ideas roll in slowly. There is something cool about working on the same thing for a long time.
Mm,
It's a fascinating process. It evolves. You're sort of not the same person you are at the end as you were at the beginning, which is interesting. I've never finished a book living in the same house that I started it in. That's never happened before. Like that kind of stuff. It's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. Like I hope that the quality um comes across that this is something somebody took their time with.
mm, mm.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I just think you have to embrace your process. Like if
Hmm.
that's the you take your time and well,
Yeah.
why hurry? Like just if you
Right.
want to make the best thing
You've still written
possible.
Right.
two more novels than most people ever
Yeah,
will.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. That's true.
At
But
least
but yeah,
and
it's
at least neither of them are fucking chapbooks, which is a term I fucking hate. What is a chapbook? Just write
I
a
don't know.
fucking Substack article if you're gonna do
Yeah.
that. Anyway, sorry.
Chat books are for poetry, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like people
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
putting other kinds of content in chat books.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
doing like
Oh,
little pamphlets and things like that.
I didn't even know. I wasn't even
Yeah.
aware of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad I haven't done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've also realized, so I mean on the Substack thing, I'm really thinking a lot about this. I somebody had a tweet or something that really articulated this in a way that I hadn't before. Um, I I like Substack for a lot of reasons. I'm not really an essay writer, so like it doesn't, so I'm not going to write them. It's
Mm,
just not really what I do, but I kind of realize I don't want to put fiction on there almost for I guess the way that I've been starting to think of it is like all of the social media things, Twitter and Substack and Instagram or whatever, they're all kind of like markets, right?
mm,
And they all incentivize particular things. And I've kind of realized that it's different if you're writing essays, totally different, and nothing I'm saying applies, I don't think. But for fiction, I realize I don't want to plug it into the incentive structure of Substack. Like, because I'll start subconsciously making different kinds of decisions about what I
yeah.
do. And so I've realized that, like, no, the market for me is a book. And so that might mean taking a long time. That might mean like, yeah, years go by before another one comes out. But yeah, it's worth I guess the takeaway from that is like in the sort of dynamic nature of what we're all trying to do, writers and podcasters do, uh I think it's so dynamic that if you're not careful, you'll just go sort of get sucked along in whatever direction. And maybe that'll be good, but maybe not. And I think it's worth being a little bit deliberate about things.
Mm. Sucked along as if you're in a river of shit in a
Yeah,
sewer.
exactly. Yeah, point your toes. Yeah.
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 Oh no, yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, I really enjoyed the book, and
Yeah.
Thanks.
I actually
Appreciate
am
that.
looking forward to the to the third one. That sounds
Mm.
really good.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, I think
that
it'll be cool.
that
Yeah.
image alone of the decapitation and the fact that it's not solved sounds fucking
Yeah.
incredible. So
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
forward to
Cool,
that
man.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Give me
Um,
2 years.
yeah. Well, yeah, thanks again, Brad, for joining us today. Go and get The Earthen Dark, a really fun read. If you really want to, if you're always like going into a bookstore and being like, oh, there's nothing for me here, as a man, because 80% of our audience is men. This is a good
Sure. Yeah,
man's
mine
book.
too.
There you go. It's about holes in the ground and shit like that, so you'll love it.
Get it. Awesome. Well, thanks, man. This was a pleasure. I always enjoy talking to you guys. So thanks.
Thanks again. See you.
Hey, just because I work for a big corporation doesn't mean I don't like fiction books. In fact, fiction books is one of my favorite kinds of books.
I've never met anyone else who likes fiction. That is too funny.
Yeah, but they're not real. I mean, you know that, right? I remember in high school they made us read The Great Gatsby. I asked my teacher, did this happen? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, why did they write it down?